All right, ladies and gentlemen, picking up where we last left off, which was being defeated by the second hand. We now did that off camera. Um, and I figured out what I was doing wrong. I'm, of course, using the set that was given to me by Namoki Mod, which they do provide, obviously, the right set for the hand placements. But I was just happened to be using the wrong set. I believe that's not even the one I was using. I was using, and I don't know if this is going to pick it up, but I was using this set, which is more of like a concave at the end, where really I'm used to using just a very, very fine small hole, which is this white one. So I figured that out. I actually even had to put on some goggles to go ahead and get those hands on there. So I did need a little bit more adjustments to get the second hand off, and I didn't want to waste any more time because that's not really that important. Again, I'm kind of happy that I had some difficulty putting on the second hand, just so you guys can see that that is going to happen. That can happen, and that's okay. Take your time. When I did try and attempt this off camera, it only took about, I want to say, 15-20 minutes, starting fresh today, trying to get that second hand on. So it really didn't take too much time. So that's that. The second hand is on there. So just picking off where we last left off. Um, let's go ahead and make sure that this is changing at the right time. Let's get the right zoom. Cool watch only. What's going on, brother man? All right, let's get the right zoom and let's check everything. So, okay, so as if we were talking at the point of getting that second hand on after you get all three hands, what are you going to do next? The next thing you're going to do is, if it is in fact rotating around the dial freely, let that do a full rotation and make sure that that doesn't foul any of the hands, specifically the minute hand, once the second hand goes on there. And now when I install that second hand, because I did it off camera, I'm going to install it with this crown set all the way in. This way, so long as I know it has a proper whine, I know that when it is on there correctly, the second hand, it's going to start spinning on its own, right? It's going to start doing its rotation. And now I let it do its natural full 360 just to make sure nothing gets fouled. If it was going to foul, it was probably going to foul this minute hand, and it didn't do so, right? It went past there freely. So I know I'm pretty much good to go. And then from there, we want to just rotate, bring that up to the second position, and we'll just rotate these hands to make sure again that when we rotate it there's no fouling. And then we're going to see the date change happen here, and it is a little early, right? Remember last time I said I like to get it at -5 or +5, but that's fine for just this demonstration purpose. It's just about me walking through the things that can go wrong and will go wrong. I will go back into this watch to do the adjustments if it really bothers me. I mean, again, that's up to you, right? Like, if it doesn't bother you, if it's -10 or +10 when the date wheel changes, at the end of the day, most of you that are building the watch are probably going to be sleeping at that time. So you may not care, but it all depends on the person. And we'll just pretty much take it from that. So from this point, right, everything is moving freely. I know that everything is working. I'm going to bring the hands closest to each other with that second hand, right? I'll keep the crown pulled out at this point. And now we're basically at the point where we want to clean the dial up, because after you get that second hand in, you're going to be removing this temporary stem and crown, and then you're going to be casing it, right? So for now, what we'll do is we'll just set this movement to the side. The reason why is because depending on the case that you get, and in this case, our case is a screwed in case back, right? So I'm gonna have to get us some screws. Now, Namoki actually gave us a nice bracelet that goes with the watch, and in that they included these screwdrivers to, one, size the bracelet, and two, open the case back up because it is screwed down with screws. So this is a very nice bracelet. We'll get into that at the end. You know, that's the very last thing. And I think that everybody watching this, if you are watching this to gain some knowledge on how to do these things, or just, you know, like if you're going to attempt it yourself and you just want to watch somebody do it, I get that. I did that you know, I watched a couple of videos on people doing it. So I mean, at this point, I'm just going to unscrew these. And these screwdrivers that they gave are very, very nice. These are very, very good quality. They're made very, very nice. I could see that these screws how these screws are interacting, like, just like you, if you build a few watches, like, you know how something is well manufactured by how it's interacting with the case as I'm trying to even take them out, right? So that's going to be taken out now. One thing I like to do, and I'm going to be doing this really slowly, guys, again, like how we did for the first one, because I want to talk through everything. That's the whole point of me doing this, right? You probably already seen how to put a watch together, but the point of me doing this is to give you heads up on things that could go wrong along the way, right? And this is one of the things that can go wrong. You may unscrew all of the screws from the case back and just leave them on your mat, and you may not have any problems, right? You may just put it to the side and nothing goes wrong, or this may be your first time doing it and you forget where you're placing those screws for the back of the case, and then you do a swipe or you do a blower, they fall off. Look how easy that was, where I knocked it over just now naturally, right? I didn't even do that for effect, and now I have to find that other screw. So of course I'm a little distracted because I'm talking through this, but my point has been made, where it's so easy to knock these little screws off, and these are actually larger screws. But any other screws that you are messing with the movement, you want to place them in some kind of container or containment where they're going to stay together and you just don't have to deal with that headache. Things happen, mistakes happen, you can knock them over regardless. uh, but chances are, if you're at least keeping them together and you do knock over that container like I just did, then you will at least have a remote idea, and you take away some of the blow from hitting it directly off of the table. So all those screws are off of the case back at this point. And again, I want to take some time to highlight the quality and manufacturing that Namoki does, because I know a lot of people can go on AliExpress and buy these parts and put together their watch. But the reason why you go with Namoki Mods is because everything is just well done down to the screws. And I'm trying to get this in focus for you guys to see, but this is just well machined, right? It's just super clean. It interacts with the case back very, very nicely. So it is worth it to look into Namoki Mods and their parts, you know, for that reason, especially if you're going to not do this so much and you're not worrying about just a budget. You're worrying more about getting a, you know, affordable price where the quality of parts are still good. That's pretty much where you want to go. So anyhow, so the first thing you want to do, now that we're opening up the case back, before we open it up all the way, is just remove any loose dust. And before I started this recording, because it's day two and I came back to my mat, I also, you know, did a quick cleaning of all the dust that could be on here. I blew everything off just to make sure to re-sanitize it. And let me just make sure chat is cool. Cool. So, you know, you're just constantly cleaning dust. And right before you open the case, because it comes pretty sterile and clean, you just don't want to open it up and add dust into there that you didn't have to already do. So let's open up the case back now. And again, we're going to have the movement received into the case back here. And this is not coming up. So let me do this. Instead of using that and scratching it up, let's see if this is thick enough to get this off of here. There we go. Yeah, this is a nice solid piece of metal here. There is some nice brushing here. I might do a review where I could do some close-ups. You know, it's hard to get close-ups on the case back and stuff like that, but you could feel the quality in these parts, man. And I'm not disappointed and I'm not surprised by that, because Nomoki is known for just that, just making super quality parts. So that's super cool. Gasket. Okay, we are getting a gasket inside of here. That's cool. And now I have the case actually opened. We're going to go ahead and hit it with the blower just for anything that might have dropped in there while I was opening this up. And then we're going to do the inside and the outside, of course. get all the dust. Now, get a good light source when you're doing this part because it's going to be difficult at different angles to see particles or see dust that may be lying on the surface. And, you're just doing a thorough check before you actually case the watch because if you notice after you screwed everything down and you've secured everything, then you have to reopening it. The movement's going to be received into the case of the back, and now you're going to have to lift off that movement. It just causes more trouble down the road, or at least more opportunities for trouble, right? So it's better off you just thoroughly inspect this. And of course, I'm not doing this for perfection, but the point again is just to give you guys what to look for before moving on. So that case is pretty much ready to be received on the movement end. And now the movement, we obviously have to remove this temporary crown and stem in order to get it into the case. Now, this is where, let's see if I could zoom this in. Perfect. Okay, so this is where things get a little bit tricky. So, again, as I said in part one, we're only handling the movement from the sides. We're not touching the top, we're not causing smears. And especially at this point, because now you have two dangerous points, right? You have this part that is very, very sensitive, the balance wheel, right? And then now you have that second hand on there. And guys, I attempted this second hand install many, many, many times. I'm not ashamed to tell you guys, even though I've modded so many different watches, it took me a total of from yesterday to today, maybe 35 to 45 minutes just for that second hand. I did have to put on my goggles. I was using the wrong tool, yada yada yada, things of that nature. But the point is that I didn't bend that second hand at all because I didn't allow myself to try and force that on there. And as I was trying to install it, I made sure that I held the second hand with the Rodico at the end of it, right? And I only pressed down, and this part is kind of important. I only pressed down where that second hand attaches to the pin, right? I'm not pushing here, I'm not pushing there, I'm pushing straight down, and I'm not doing any kind of wiggling and thinking, okay, let me try to wiggle from an angle. You start getting frustrated and you start trying to reinvent the wheel, and that's when you're going to run into issues, especially when the second hand is this thin. Like that's a super thin second hand, which will be easy for you to bend at any point, whether it be the very end or the middle, and it's just going to look wonky. You're not going to be happy with it. You may not even install it at that point. So just little things like that I want to give you guys as we go along. So anyway, now we want to remove that temporary um, stem and crown, right? I always bring those hands closer together just so like that I know when I flip this around, okay, my danger zone is here. I definitely don't want to touch it at that point, right? But at overall, I don't want to touch the middle of that anyway. So now how do you get this piece off, right? And that it's easy to find online how to get it off. It's harder to find a good technique. And I've danced with this a few times and I've tried many different ways. You can't just lay this down flat because you'll compromise the hands. So you have to actually press down a piece on here to release that, right? So it is a little bit awkward. Now let me fish through the tools that they provided and see what I want to end up using. I normally use a very, very fine point tweezer that's even finer than this. It's like a super fine tweezer. I could use this. I might use this, but let me see if I can get something better. I might use this piece of pegwood because wood versus steel. I don't have to worry about it scratching, right? Um, but it may not be as sturdy as using it. So here's the technique, guys. Again, I'm only holding the movement from the sides. Now, what I like to do is I pinch it here, right? I pinch it at the stem because when you push it down, you kind of have to pull this back at the same time. And when you do this kind of movement, you're kind of naturally pulling this out at the same time, right? So if you were just to hold this here and like if I was just to hold it like this and press it down, it's not going to come out. It still needs you to give a little slight pull this way, very slightly. And I'm actually not going to, bless you, baby. I'm actually not going to pull at all because once I hit that, if I have this position where my fingertips are resting at the end, then it's naturally just going to glide out. So here we go. I'm holding the movement from the sides here, right? And I'm not laying the face down so I don't have to worry about the second hands or anything like that. Now I'm trying to get this on camera and I'm trying to see this. I believe I'm looking through the camera, guys. So bear with me. This is the piece I got to press down here. So let's see. I'm pressing that piece down, maybe more so at the base. I might have to use the tweezers because again, the uh, the wood does is not as sturdy as metal. Let's see. Let's see if I can get this. Is it all the way in? Ah, perfect. Okay, so I made that mistake, right? Make sure that you push the stem all the way in before doing it. Now, I didn't do that because I didn't want to compromise the second hand swinging around. But again, we're only touching the very sides, so no matter how much the second hand is turning around, that's why I tell you guys it's important to always handle the movement on its side because when you have this flipped over, you don't know where that second hand is, and you have to have it all the way pushed in to get that stem out. So now, no matter regardless of where that second hand is rotating, I'm always on the corners, so I'm not going to foul that second hand, have it knocked off, bend it, whatever case may be. And if you've already spent like 40 minutes trying to get that out, super frustrating, right? Okay, so I think I just released it. Let's see. No, I'm actually going to use the tweezers because that's going to have no give. Let's see. Again, I'm not in the posture nearly where I would be if I wasn't recording this. So just bear with me if certain things take me a little longer than usual. There's a little lever that I need to push down. Hold on, let me just take a eyeball this off camera real quick. Okay, making sure I'm just pressing it on. So it's this lever right here, and it should just release it out. Let's see. It still doesn't want to come. I'm gonna try the very corner of it. Yeah, there we go. And I dropped it. So not what you want to do, right? It did fall down flat, but it's fine because it just fell down flat for a second, which probably just pushes the second hand downward. So it's fine as long as I'm not like having it face down and then forcing the back of it, right? So I'm still good. Second hand still good. I'm checking the hands; they still have spacing in between them. Nothing is fouling. So now that temporary stem da, 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 is off, right? And I like to collect these, right? As far as when I started mining, I use it as momentums just to keep it. So now this is loose, and now the movement is ready to be received in the case. Now at this point, even if I did a preliminary clean on the dial, I'll probably go back, grab my Rodico, grab my blower, and do another round of removing dust, right? Because again, I don't want to have to go back into this when it's done. But be careful now because when you remove that temporary stem and crown, the second hand's going to keep going, right? To the movement's point of view, that stem is still in the first position. Um, and it's going to keep going around and around until you get another crown in there. So I'm not going to do a thorough clean again. So that's just what I recommend doing. Again, do another cleaning on the actual case too. Now you're ready to have the movement the movement received into the case, right? So I would remove this crown before you get the stem in there. Just to, I don't know, if it's coming through a little bit on this end, you just don't want to have it interrupted. And let's get this centered here. Okay, lay this down flat. Okay, and this is another step where you want to take your sweet candy time. When you're receiving the case into the movement, or the movement into the case rather, you want to make sure that everything is flush and coming down straight on. Why do I say that? Because if you don't center this case, right, when you're putting it down into the movement, again, you're going to foul that second hand. You're going to bend the corner. It's going to stop. It's going to bend. You're going to have to redo everything. So Make sure that you're coming straight down onto the movement when you're doing this, and you kind of want to be over the watch. And you want to do this very steady. And when you're watching yourself put it down, you're making sure that you're avoiding by all means that second hand, no matter where it is. So the inside of the case, right, should never be overlapping that second hand as you're coming down. Very simple, right? And then obviously we know the orientation because the date wheel's here. That's where the crown and the stem go in. So I know that I'm right. And you want to line that up as much as possible. Now, you don't have to concern yourself with getting that absolutely perfect. Okay. When you're first putting and when you're first casing the movement. Um, and I'll explain and show you guys why. So now, again, I'm not using my normal setup. I would normally do this on a pad. Okay. And if you could get yourself a pad, it is smart to do this. I did this flat on a mat because I don't know what setup you're going to have. But if you do have a pad, it's better because when you do case it, right? And I'll show you guys why. When you do case this straight down, let me just aim and make sure that I don't do what I told you not to do. Nice and straight, bring that down, right? I would say bring it down, right? Get the case. The movement's not all the way in there, but what makes it easier is that you could just do a flip over now when you pull it out. Because in the beginning, this movement edging is not going to be flush inside the case, which we will have to push that down a smidge, not too much. We're not using a lot of force, about as much force as you would to maybe knock over a bottle of water and just get that edging in there nice and flush with everything else. And then you want to make sure that it is lined up with um, that hole for the stem. Yeah. So the reason why I said it's not too crucial, and we could see that that's not all the way in there just yet. So let's keep working on that. And I'll just push it down in corners, or if I see spacing on the movement where there's no gears and there's nothing that I'm going to now this okay, so again, this is not where you want to push the movement down. Do not try to even go on the corners. Don't even try it. If this is sticking up, find another way, move the rotor, in the way and try to push the sides of it, but stay away from the balance wheel by any means necessary because that's the only thing that's going to disrupt the actual watch and mess up the movement and throw the timing off and everything else. Now, you don't how much of the movement are am I pushing down on? Not too much. And I'm not even sure if I pushed that down too much. And I'll know if I did because that second hand will foul the crystal, right? And that means that I just pushed the movement too far in. And the second hand is still moving, so I know that I should be good at this point. I'll just eyeball the edging to make sure that it's all in at the same level. Um, it looks like it is. Stay away from that balance wheel. I'm going to keep saying that, guys, over and over again. It may be annoying, but again, it's literally one of the things that will mess up the entire install. So sorry, I'm going to keep saying it, but that's in there. The second hand is moving nicely. I'm still being careful when I flip this over, right? I'm pretty confident that that's in there. It's not going to fall back out, but just keep your finger like here just to catch it in case it wants to fall out. And I know I'm giving you guys a lot and it may feel like it's confusing, but like maybe you want to play this back as you're doing it just so like that each step can make sense of what I'm warning you about. Yeah. Um, so yeah, that's moving fine. Like, we're gonna pretend like everything is perfect inside the actual crystal and the movement. Make sure that there's no dust. And again, that's the reason why I tell you to make sure for that point, because otherwise now if I find that there's dust in between, I have to pull everything out. So okay, like I said, let's pretend like everything is perfect. I'm sure that it's not perfect, but that's all right. Ooh. Um, and at this point now, we're going to cover things up, right? And we have to get the stem in. Whoa, we got to get the stem installed to the crown of the actual case because this temporary crown and stem is no good. It's pretty much done with at this point. Now here's the only problem that I've seen with the Moki setup. They didn't include anything to adhere or glue the stem to the crown. Something like this, like hypo cement, is what I use. You can use other things, like I believe the other common thing to use is like grip tight or something like that. Maybe they just forgot to include it in my packaging. I don't know, but at the end of the day, we want to glue the end of this stem into the actual crown. That way, as we're twisting it, right, as we're unscrewing it, because this is a screw down crown, screw down case, as you're doing that torque back and forth, you're going to loosen it from this actual stem. But what is nice is that we're getting two stems here, and it looks like that this one in the small packaging that came outside of the movement packaging, which I think this is, yeah. So this is the other one. This is the other full stem, and you can see it in comparison to the one that I just dropped out of the casing. This is already looked to be cut. So that's really nice because that saves you a lot of time. Now, let me talk about if it wasn't cut, right? Because you may get scenarios like that. Who knows? Maybe you lose this or something like that. But you would then take this out. You would attach the crown at the end of this, right? So we would take this out, attach the crown to it, put it into the case, and then we would measure the distance from the end of the crown, from the inside of the crown to the case, and just cut whatever is necessary to cut to make it flush. So again, going back to something like clippers, I don't know if you could use clippers actually for this. We used it for the dial feet for sure. You could use it for dial feet, but for this part, you may actually need a pair of snippers, metal snippers, to do that. And you always want to leave a tiny bit extra than what you need exact from clipping, because you can always clip out more and file down to what you need, rather than you obviously can't put material back after you clip it. So you would take this out, like I said, attach the crown, snip it from the different distance, and then just take it down little by little. But because Namoki already included this, then we're good to go. Now, I have to, like I said, glue this. So what I usually get is I have an oiler set on the last one I use for glue. So you see a lot of dried up glue on there, and I'll just drop the glue on here, put the end of the stem here, and then just tighten it on the crown, put it in, let everything dry. Okay. So we're gonna get up to that point, but before I do that, even though my assumption is that this is already prior cut, which I'm pretty sure it is, I'm going to test things, right? And that's something that you're going to do if you're having to size this long stem. You're going to have to keep testing, putting it on, putting it off to make sure that everything runs flush and you can close the case. Now, going back to what I said to, it's more important for you to uh, make sure you're putting the movement in straight in the case rather than making sure that everything is perfectly lined up, is that technically once you get the movement in here, you can adjust the positioning up and down. If you, let's say you didn't get things on straight, right, and you'll know that because this crown hole here or a stem hole here has to line up into the movement. And let's say things were not straight. Well, then what I would do personally is I get a tool here, which is also included in the Namoki Mod kit, and I'll grab the edging of the movement here. Like you see that little cutout, and it has like little cutouts on the very gray part. I'll grab that with a piece of metal, and then I'll just force that up and down, right? And that's going to essentially shift the dial up and down to line things up. Obviously, you want to have that already set into place as straight as possible. It looks like I'm pretty good on that front, and I probably don't need to do an adjustment here. But again, we're covering everything that could possibly go wrong and how to pivot from there without destroying the movement or destroying the mod in general. So there are little cutouts here on the very edging, so you could grab this tool and then you could push up or down depending on where you want it to line up, where that stem gets fed through into the keyless works, right? So that's that. But I pretty much got it down packed, so why mess around with it, right? And if you got it down the first time too, then same thing. So Now we're attaching the crown to this pre-cut stem for us. Um, I actually hold this. I don't do it with my fingers. I actually hold this with tweezers. Now, when you hold this with tweezers, this part here is what interacts with the keyless works. So when I'm holding it, I never grab it down here, right? And then of course I oil this very end of it before putting it in. I don't know if you're gonna have all of that and do all of that. And I can tell you now, Namoki's not going to provide that because the oils that you put on the end here, because this is going to be metal on metal essentially inside of the watch that make it function, those oils are very expensive, right? I have them because I was doing practice taking apart movements and putting them together. In fact, I probably have the movements here. Yeah, I still have the movements here that I practiced with in doing that. And at one point, I was thinking about servicing, but anyway, the point is to hold it at the very end of it, like so, staying away from where that attaches, and then I kind of just squeeze that, screw that in as much as I can. Um, and sometimes what I'll do is it'll look like I'm actually pressing down here, but I'm not. I'm actually all the way up here, and that'll hold it. And once it just starts to free spin, that's it. You're pretty much you've caught onto that threading as much as you could. Now, from the stem um, to the crown. We're gonna do a test run. I'm gonna put this in here. Okay, so when I'm putting this through, right, I give this a little bit of a spin, nothing too crazy. Maybe I'll shimmy it back and forth, but take your time. And now that's as far as it's gonna go in. I'll pull it back out, and if it doesn't catch, which it didn't there, okay, I know that I maybe have to like twist it down since it is a screw down crown to get even closer to the case, which is fine. So let's see. I just wanted to catch on to there. It's possible maybe so it's possible I maybe secured this too much or something. So I'm just going to readjust. Or it's possible they took off, Namoki took off too much material, which I doubt it. I probably just have to readjust this. But essentially, I should be able to screw this all the way down and it should catch into the movement easily, right? So make sure we get this on camera. Go back and forth. I'll probably just screw this down, which might give me a little bit more. There's other things that I do to pivot. Sometimes you even have to just kind of like pull the movement a little bit towards it. But this is actually a super tight. Like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. It just has to go. It has to go in and catch, right? I could tell, and that's not biting down. So we may actually have to cut our own stem ourselves. To be honest with you, hang on. Let's just try this one more time because if we don't have to do that, then that saves us a lot of time. But I'm not able to really screw down this crown all the way and it's not catching in the movement. Um, and I don't want to, let's see if I could leave a little bit more room, get it to go in. No, she's not biting down. So we're probably going to have to size a stem ourselves because this doesn't seem like it wants to catch. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we are going to do that. Okay. So as I said before, now again, it would have been nice if that would have caught because now I've got to introduce tools that everybody may not have, but it is really cheap and it is affordable. And if you want to measure things out for your watch anyway, then it's probably worth getting something to measure things out. So again, Now we're having to do the install from scratch, right? I tried to do the one that was pre-cut. I don't know, maybe I'm just not thinking of what I could be doing wrong to get that in there, but it just wasn't catching. Holding it by the base, putting it into the movement, I should be able to just do a quick shimmy and it'll lock in. So I just do it back and forth and it should go in. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so that locked in. Yeah. And then I'm measuring. Mm, tell me the battery's dead. Yeah, it's dying, but I can see it. Okay. That's zeroed out. That's negative. Let's zero that out. Okay. So then I'm measuring from here where the crown thread begins and the back of the crown, right? So I'm just gonna see how much material needs to be cut. And okay, this is kind of dead. Hang on one second. I could do it manually. It's not a big deal. Back of here, back of here. So about 2 millimeters of material needs to be cut off of it, right? So again, we're just going to remove the stem, push it in. Is it already pushed in? Yeah, it's already pushed in. Let's see if I can get this spot so I can show you guys. Let's use tweezers. Now we can lay it flat because we don't have to worry about the actual hand being pushed in when we do it, right? So we got to take this off again, and then we got to measure and mark, right? Measure the stem. Grab my marker. Now I'm starting to feel like a regular day at the office here on the bench, to be honest with you. So about right here is where I have to cut. Mark it like that. It's going to be at the top of that mark, pretty much. Yeah, and I'll probably cut a little bit less than that, right? So get my snips. Again, this is not another thing that's included. So unfortunately, if you run into the same issue, and I might try that pre-cut stem again, but this is kind of good to go through too. So I measured it here. Obviously, I used a big marker. It bleeds down, but I know this is where after remeasuring that mark when I made it, that I need to snip pretty much just above. So we'll snip right above that mark, maybe a little bit less because less is more in case we have to go back. That's done. All right. After that, we need to get a filer, and I gotta remember where I put this filer. Somewhere amongst here. I just got one yesterday, and I'm not sure where I put it. Because I honestly didn't think that I would have to get to this part again. Um, all right, we'll get back to that. We'll get back to that. But essentially, you're filing down this part here where you clipped, and then you're retrying it, right? I'm just gonna go for it because I don't want to. I'm not sure where I put that filer at this point, and I don't want to hold it up. So let's try to recatch this. Oops, sorry. Get that in the screen. Hmm. That doesn't feel like it turned enough, but I guess it did. Let's get this out of the way a little bit. And we retry this. Now, chances are I'm probably going to have to cut more material off of this at this point, to be honest with you. Yeah, not even close, I don't think. Is that all the way in? That's all the way in. Okay, there's a spring here. So I may, okay, gotcha. So there you go. I didn't cut off enough material, right? Obviously, I didn't shave it down, so that may have given me the amount of distance that I needed. But I just want to show you guys like what the process looks like if you do have to um, go ahead and size the stem from a factory length. I think that's the proper way to say that, right? I'm going to retry the recut one because I don't think that I was pressing down on the crown. I just realized that it is spring loaded. So that's probably the reason why I didn't get the distance I needed because this is cut pretty far down now that I'm looking at it, right? So let's show the difference now that we have everything in front of us. Why not, right? So this is what the pre-cut was, and this was, I guess, let's face them the same way. Uh, this is the pre-cut. The bottom is the pre-cut. The top is the one that I just sized. So obviously there's there's way more material on here for the grip and it has to be a lot shorter from what they're gauging. So we definitely had to cut again, which is fine. I left a lot more just in case because I want to make sure that I don't cut too much off and I get stuck. But that's the process. Cut file until you get it down to where it needs to be. Let's retry the pre-cut from Namoki just to see if maybe me placing it inward. And this is where it's important to have your finger cots on because we're handling the end of this with our fingers. If we are using a tweezer, again, to hold, that's fine, but we want to do that at the very base of where we're turning it, not where the keyless function magic happens. Yeah. So we're holding it back here, we're turning that, and it's like this rectangular box with a point at the end of it. That's where we want to kind of just leave that alone. And then let's try this again. The pre-cut goes in, shake it back and forth. There was a little bit of a spring tension there. I just want to get it to catch on. I'm surprised, to be honest with you, because if they pre-cut this, I'm expecting it to catch 1, 2, 3, but it doesn't seem like it wants to go with what they pre-cut for us, right? And you don't want to do too much forcing because if it's not falling in place easily, you are going to be doing like functions out of whack where that stem is not supposed to really be forcing things over. So I'm just doing a little bit of a back and forth shake to see if it grips, and it's just not staying in there. And I'm a little shocked, to be honest with you, that that pre-cut didn't work. But this is how it is, man. When we're dealing with millimeters, when we're dealing with, you know, such close sizing and precise sizing, um, sometimes this can happen. Now, I can use this as a marker, but obviously we don't want to cut it down to the same distance. So we'll cut a little bit more material off here and we'll continue our way down until that functions the way we need it to. So we'll cut a little bit more off and probably just about here. And you probably want to go like a millimeter at a time, maybe half a millimeter at a time, rather. You really want to get um, the shaving as well done. That should be good. Let's see. And it's kind of nice because I know that this is, at least in my hands and in my world, a little too short, but this one is still extremely longer, as you guys can see. So I know I can continue to cut. gonna cut a little bit more before we retry it. And I probably shouldn't have the movement open, because if I cut this piece and it goes flying and it happens to fall into the movement, then you're done for. Let's cut a little bit more. That fell there. Wipe that off right away. That added material. Okay. Now let's measure this up just to get a gauge. All right, so I'm still significantly longer, but let's try it again in the movement before we take off more material. And this is just another process where I would again, like, just take your time, take off little by little material as you go along. Now I do have a whole bunch of NH35 stems, because that's the movement that I primarily like to use when doing my mods. So I won't be crap out of luck if I cut too much off of this one too. Um, but that may not be the case for you. You pretty much just have the pre-cut, and if it wasn't pre-cut correctly, then you have the one that came with the movement, and that's it, right? So you kind of have to make sure that you don't go too far with either one. And we'll get this back into the movement. And now this is good. This is good. This is going all the way down. It's catching onto there. I probably can cut a little bit more material off, but I think that I'll leave it there for now. We'll perfect everything later, but let me just make sure that this is caught onto here. It is screwing down. It is catching. Okay, cool. So this is catching. This is functioning the watch, right? I'll just show you on this side. So that is making contact with the case, and it's going through its functions without a problem. Let's just make sure I don't change that date at the wrong time. So that that's 12 a.m. I like to always change things at 6 a.m. You probably don't have to wait that long, but everything's still functioning. Everything's changing over. Push that in. The second hand runs. Push this case crown all the way in and twist, and we do get contact. Now, this is not finished, right? I need to cut more material off here to make it flush, but we're gonna pretend like it is perfect, right? But even still, we have to still remove it back from the case, right? So we're pressing that little lever again. Let me see if I could get it on camera. Let's push this in. No, too much. Right there. Okay. Push that little lever down. Pull this out, right? Um, Take this off. And then one recommendation I could say is just to make sure that you get something to adhere this part of the stem, right? That thread part into the crown, right? That gets glued into there. Um, Once you know the sizing is correct, and then you just kind of don't mess with it for, I would say, like 24 hours. Let that dry up. I do need to take a little bit more material off. You know what? Let's just do it, because after that we're pretty much done, right? Essentially, we could just put the case back on there. So let's just make it right. Let me see if I could find the filer for you guys. Uh, Sorry guys, I'm just looking for the nail filer. I do apologize. My lovely wife, I think, is gonna try and find me it. In the interim, I might need to just cut more material anyway. So I don't know where I put this doggone thing. I promise I'm more organized than this when I don't have a camera rolling in my face. Um, yeah, man, it's not in front of me, which is crazy because she just gave me another one. But like us men, we don't sometimes be as organized as we should be. What should be like underneath? It is what it is. All right. So I know that. Where did I put that stem? I know that I have to cut more material off here for sure because that crown. So okay, so essentially, right, when you cut off enough material, the right amount of material, and you screw this down, obviously the crown's going to go all the way down to the case, and that's the way it should look like when you have the crown onto the casing itself, right? So if you imagine the stem running through here, that's when it's all the way flush, so that's when it's good, right? And I know I need to cut a little bit more material, so let's do that now. And my lovely wife got me at least this, something to file down. Now I don't need that much, and I should be remeasuring. I'm eyeballing this. Don't do that. When you're getting this close to the case, you really want to start getting a little bit more precise. I'm gonna nip a little tiny bit more and chance it, just because I really feel like it needs that much more. All right, that should be cool. So that's clipped there. We're going to use now. So this is the part. Okay, cool. I wanted to show you guys this because this is kind of important too. So we're just going to file down this a little bit. There's some material coming off there, so I know that this is successfully filing down. Right? Actually, this is good that I'm doing this because there's actually important parts here too. It's crazy how much is important. And keep in mind, guys, like if you missed a couple of steps, maybe I'm making this seem more complicated than what it is, but I'm also giving you game on exactly how the cleaning process should be too, right? So now I just filed that down. Obviously, there's straps of metal there. We don't want that anywhere near our stuff, but especially on the stem. So I'm using the radical where I'm pushing this into the radical just to clean up anything that's debris. Radical is fantastic and will pick up everything. So what I do is I just push this into there. You could even push this end of it because you're not going to get like residue of Radico going into your watch. Radico does a fantastic job of like pretty much staying together, but cleaning off little bits and pieces. And then, of course, you could probably see it on camera here. There's pieces of metal there. Um, we'll separate this piece since we just cleaned it, and then we'll do the same thing with the Radico. Now, are you going to cross contaminate when you do this? No. The Radical will hold these pieces really, really well. And it's not like I'm using the Radical to clean the back of the movement where I have to worry about even like those little tiny specks coming off. So we should be safe. Now, hopefully this is a perfect sizing now for this. I'll give it one more push just for paranoia. All right, now we're getting this on here. Oh boy. 1 second. Okay, good, good, good. All right. And rinse and repeat, man. Just until it's good, it's good. You know what I mean? Like until the sizing is just right, you just rinse and repeat that process at the end of the day. But I wanted to at least go through like a full filing and everything else just to show you guys um, what that cleaning process would look like too. And then also obviously make sure everything is off of the end of your gloves. So, that way you're not getting any material into the movement when you're handling the case like this, right? And you are going to need the case. You're going to have to leave the case back open at this point, obviously, because you are, what do you call it? You are having to put on and off the crown. So that's that. Now we're not flush yet, unfortunately. Um, that's spring loaded. That should be just twist down. It is stopping there because there's too much material. Okay, that's another good thing. I love this. So it's not enough material taken off, and I know that because as the threading catches for the crown, it stops, and I don't want to say, "Oh, come on, get in there," because now you're forcing that stem into the movement more than you need to. It should just naturally twist and get on there. So I just know that at this point, the stem is still too long. So it is what it is. It is another thing that you should and will need to be patient with. So that's fine. Press that piece out again, rinse and repeat. And it is what it is, like they gave me a pre-cut stem. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't want to blame them. I want to say that Namoki is pretty much on point. Now I'm going to debate whether or not I should go for a clip or should I just go for a file. Now we're still significantly smaller than the pre-cut. I could probably get away with another snip. I'm making a decision here, and I can't go back, but I know that I have extra stems. If I were you, where are you? If I were you, then I would probably go for a file than a snip, just because a file is more gradual. Yeah, but I'm gonna go for a snip here. And if I mess this up, well then maybe there's gonna be a part three to this. uh, Once again, don't snip that right over your movement. I mean, technically, it could still fly over there, but I think we'll be okay. Hopefully, that's not too much material. I don't think it is. I'm feeling pretty confident. I'm still going to go for a little bit of a file just to make that a little smoother at the end. Because the real reason why you go for a file is that these things have threading on it. And if it's not smooth at the top, right, then it's not going to thread in optimally. So you either way you want to go for a little bit of a file, but if you think you're really close to getting it to the right size, then you don't want to go for a clip because this is very thin and these clippers are only but so thin at the end. So it's going to take off a minimal amount of material. So if you're really close, you don't want to keep going for a clip and taking off too much material. I know I sound like a broken record, but I feel like I'm giving you a different angle of opinion on it. That should be good. Same process, clean, radical, dab, 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 dab. I might just go, that's fine. Dab that piece of metal off. Push this into the radical just to be like super, super cautious about that loose metal, scrap metal, whatever, scrap metal. Just that loose stuff that you pushed off. And again, you're not going to get radical coming off on here where you're pushing it back in. If you do, you just have to hit it one more time and it'll pick itself off of it. So okay, that should be good. Let's take a look at mine versus what was given to me as a pre-cut. I hopefully am still longer. It is still longer. Cool. Throw this to the side. Place this in, and let's see how. This is a process, man. This is a process. This is what it looks like. It is what it is. A little bit of a tedious work, but don't rush anything. It's supposed to be part of the process of building your watch is the fact that it is tedious and it kind of make you attached to the fact that you had to work with it a little bit. Okay, this is like our fourth attempt to see if this is cut down enough. And are we in there? We're in, we're locked, great. Push. Okay, so we are a little bit further down, but not nearly enough to, I don't think, lock in. But that's cool. You know what? let's uh let's just imagine that we are getting that flush, and I just want to explain to you guys the couple more steps, and then that's pretty much it, man. You're basically home once you get to this point. Once you get the second hand in there, and once you get the hour and minute hand, you know, this is going to take a while to get to the right size. I'm really like, I don't want to say disappointed, but I guess disappointed is the word that the pre-cut wasn't working. I'm gonna attempt it one more time, because that would have saved you guys. Like, I've been on this for like this part for like what, 15, 20 minutes. Um, had this pre-cut already be on the money for the sizing, then we pretty much would have been done by now. So I'm gonna attempt this one more time. And I don't know, maybe if they were expecting for you not to twist and thread this all the way down, but for me, I don't feel comfortable like this is caught onto here, right? But it's not threaded all the way down. It doesn't make sense for me to leave this loose just so it is long enough in my mind. I like for this to be all the way screwed in to where it's kind of like twisting in between my fingers, so I know that that's as far as it's going to go. And then let's get this in here. Maybe I don't know. But it's not catching the way I want it to. It's like it still comes out. So it feels like it was cut too short. Period. That's just what it is. And I'm trying to get it all the way down and trying to rock it back and forth, but I don't feel the keyless works engaging the stem. So it kind of feels like, yeah, that this was just cut too short, unfortunately. And I'm not going to be able to use it. So it is what it is. Where's the oh crap? Where did I put it? Oh, this is the piece I was working with. Keep track of your parts, guys. Let's eyeball this again. I guess there's no reason to rush this, right? I guess the people that are going to be watching this are the ones that are going to enjoy this whole step process. Okay, so this is the pre-cut that they gave me. This is mine. So obviously, I'm still very safe from being too short of a cut. Um, let's have another clip, shall we? Because worst case scenario for me is that I clip this too short and I have like 3,000 NH35 stems anyway, so I won't be stuck. But I don't do as I say, not as I do, right? Go for the file, not for the cut. And you could be measuring it from the case threading to the back of the crown over and over again just to make sure you feel comfortable with how much material is coming off. Blah, blah, blah. Almost lost the damn um, filer again. I'm going to file this again, like I said. You know how I feel like doing this thing? What's that guy's name, babe, that does the paintings? He's really good. He does the paintings from scratch. Bob Ross? Yeah, I feel like Bob Ross as I'm doing this, to be honest with you, because I just constantly talk and I'm doing this, but I'm trying to concentrate, but I'm trying not to just do this. I guess I could just do this in silence and people would just watch, but that would kind of defeat the purpose. Like if I was really, really super nice at building watches, like I could just do them in like under 15 minutes. I guess I wouldn't have to say much and you guys could just see me do it. But to be honest, I'm not that good. I'm not, super nice and I don't have super expensive equipment. So instead, what I do is just walk you through each step slowly. I know it's a little tiny bit painful, but I give you what to look out for and you get to see, I'm doing this over and over again, but I think these parts that I'm doing are very important. Making sure you re-clean the little straps, the metal straps there. Put this down. Okay, we're a little shorter now. Let's see how we go. Hmm. Yeah, I feel like Bob Ross when I'm doing this as I'm explaining it. Well, Bob Ross was nice. Bob Ross would like he just see the painting before it was even there. It's kind of crazy. I'm sorry, I haven't been checking chat, but it's kind of hard. I have to like literally tap my screen. Space G's in the building. What's up, brother man? I know you was probably here for a minute. Um, and anybody else is in here still, man. You guys are true supporters, man. Rocking with me for over an hour now. That flew by. Okay, so we cut off more material. I know you guys are like, yo, if that don't fit right now, I'm watching this on the playback, and we gonna have to see how it ends. And I think it caught in here, but I don't think it's gonna. I think it's gonna be flush, even still, with it. It is spinning a lot better though, right? But it's not gonna be flush yet, so it's even more material. Wow, this is this is surprising, as I did snip off another good amount. So I thought we were gonna be a hell of a lot closer, but I guess not. All right, let me shut up and really focus on this clip here. I feel like I am talking and that is entertaining, but I'm not focused as much as I would be if I was really going at this. I'm really close to the danger zone of being too short. So let's not get too gun ho on how much material we're going to go for. Again, my eyes are further than I would like it to be from when I'm actually doing this. Oh man, nah, YOLO. That's too much, then it's too much. You know what I'm saying? Look at this, file it down, rinse and repeat. This is like AMSR right now. I don't know if you guys can hear me filing. Maybe the few people in here fell asleep. You know what I'm saying? If you did, you did. That's cool. At least I got to help somebody catch some Z's. Some AMSR. I think it's AMSR. Some Bob Ross. Bob Ross is good also to like. He's got that like that tone of voice that just like relaxes you too. And you're watching the painting come together. So if you're having trouble sleep, you want to see something cool at the same time, that's the guy. All right. Once again, let's try this. Let's see. Make sure chat. You guys are chilling. Cool. Very cool. Maybe you're cooking right now. You just have this on the background. I don't know. Okay. Let's see. We shall see. Again, if you're gripping this, not at the very end where the piece goes into the keyless works, kind of like grabbing it from the additional teeth that's not grabbing into the crown itself. That's in. Let's see. Wait. Oh, do we got it? Finally. Sheesh. That was like, yeah, that took a minute. But we finally got it flush. Okay, cool. So now the crown may be a smidge more filing, but that's cool. But this is like pretty much I would call this acceptable, right? The crown is going to do its job as far as keeping water out because it has like the rings inside of it that are going to keep it out. Um, but this is what it should look like, and it's kind of good that I did this. I mean, I feel bad because I would love to say Namoki gave me a stem that was properly cut, and they saved me a bunch of time. But it's kind of good that I ran into the problem because realistically, you may be too, and maybe I did something wrong myself. I don't like to point fingers, but this is what it needs to look like when the stem is cut to the right size. Everything is flush. So now we're pretty much at the point where I have to glue the stem to the crown, right? And the way that I do that, like I said, I'm not going to do that on camera, but that's another point that's pretty important. I hope you guys lasted to this point because that's the only thing that I didn't see included with this whole entire kit. The kit that they gave did not have this kind of glue or didn't have any thread, locking to it. And I can't imagine that just tightening this crown onto the stem is going to be secure enough because, especially on the screw down crown, you're going to be torquing this to come off of the case. You're going to be tightening it. And then eventually that crown's just going to fall off. So, one thing that is important that I feel you guys need to do to make sure it's secure is glue that crown onto the stem. After you pretty much do that and you get that on there, so after, let's say, at this point, I did that gluing, we're now ready to recase this, right? To put the case back on here. Um, that being said, another step that I like to do is I'll put some silicone grease onto the rubber seal here, but you may not have that, but that's pretty much it, man. We were now at the point where you just put the case back on, screw it down, and then put on your bracelet, and you're all set to go. So that is pretty much the process on it. I would advise to get something like this. Like, I'll show you guys what I mean for that seal. Is that O-ring on the back of the case that deteriorates over time through temperature change, right? So hot, cold, but that's going to keep the water from coming into the case. So it's important to keep that lubricated. So you may want to get yourself this. This is super cheap to get on Amazon or AliExpress. And then, of course, you're going to need the glue, like I said. But outside of that, Namoki provided everything. I did run into some issues with their pre-cut stem. I thought it was very nice that they included that to save you potentially time to have to cutting that stem because you guys saw how long that actually took for me to do that. Um, but unfortunately, whatever was cut wasn't the right sizing. So, other than that, all of the tools and all of the pieces are well manufactured. I do see a lot of quality in this for sure for the parts. And that's pretty much the end. Like, I guess from here, I don't think you guys need to see me screw in the case back and everything else. I will off camera, you know, glue this down. Again, another thing that I would do, I don't know if you guys are going to have it, but within these oilers, I actually do have D5 in here, which is what I use to oil up that stem that goes inside of the watch case. I use that a very, very, very little bit amount of that just to keep things a little fresh from metal to metal contact. But if you're getting this kit for the first time and you're doing this mod for the first time, then obviously you're not going to have all of that. And that's the reason why I wanted to stick with whatever they gave me and then give my critique as I go along of how and what I avoid, but also what my critique is from what they're providing to what you're doing. And now a lot of people have completed their mods completely, from beginning to end. I don't know what people have done when they got up to the stem and crown part. That's the only part that I'm a little confused about. I will contact Namoki and get an answer from that. But outside of that, you're getting everything that you need, and even the hand removers to reset them. We didn't have to use that here because we got it in one shot. But yeah, um, everything is safe to go outside of that. And oiling the stem is probably it's probably not super crazy, right? Like there's probably oil inside of the actual keyless work to help that out. So don't stress over it if you don't have that. You pretty much have everything from start to finish. And then I just want to show you guys the bracelet that was given. And again, with the bracelet, they gave me all of the tools. That's not it. They gave me all of the tools I need to take off the screws for the case back, along with the screwdriver for the bracelet itself. And I thought this was a really great quality bracelet. So it's absolutely phenomenal. And I honestly like the fact that the bracelet came with a buckle that has these tooled micro adjustments rather than it being a butterfly clasp. Because as you know, if you don't have half sizes on the links on a butterfly clasp, then you can't get it sized appropriately to your wrist. But this is really nice, and this is going to be very integrated once we get this onto the case. Um, all together, and the screw for this bracelet is already in it, and it's very nice. It's all screwed in. The bracelet is also has screwed in links, so everything is very, very nice. The satisfaction of completing a project. Yeah, man, absolutely. Once you get to this point and once you finally finish, man, it is very satisfying. And I'll show you guys. Everything is functioning well. So I pull it out to the second position on here, and the second hand stops because it does have hacking. We're going to twist this around to the, and of course, remember, I didn't glue this. So if this falls out, I don't want nobody laughing. Okay, so we're getting close to the 12 o'clock. I think I'm at a minus 10 on this date change. Let's slow it down. Getting close. Yeah, I think that changed closer to minus 7 or whatever, but that still works. Put that in. Second hand still runs, and everything is good to go. Now I'm just holding this because I didn't screw this in, but we have a display case back, sapphire sandwich. Finishing is very nice. Maybe I'll do a review of this watch, just to show you guys some close-ups, and refer to this video if anybody is attempting to do their own mod, just so you can go through the painful explanation of me going through every step and what to look for. But I think it's going to be useful for somebody out there, so I had a lot of fun doing this, with you guys and showing you guys what I look out for. But anyway, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I know these two part one and part twos were very, very long, but I think that they're very useful. I already had a couple people reach out and said that it was very useful for them to refer to. So let me know in the comments, of how you think I did for this full explanation of putting a watch together. There are videos out there that they'll show you step by step, and they'll kind of glide through it and make it a little bit more, seamless. But I've tried to cover every single thing that can potentially go wrong as we went along. And let me know what you guys think. If I missed anything, if you guys are attempting to do it, you guys can always reach out, ask me any questions, and I'm more than happy to respond and help you guys out. But anyway, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I appreciate you guys checking out this video, and I'll see you in the next one.